Welcome back to Tilly's segment of ranting on YouTube about nothing in particular. Today's topic is Zootopia. As we all know, Zootopia 2 has been announced. There has been a trailer that was put out. I am a big Zootopia fan. I can recite that entire first movie word for word by memory. That's my party trick. But something about Zootopia has really been racking my mind for months, like actual months, and it is this. What is inflation like in Zootopia? Hear me out. There's that scene where Nick goes into that elephant popsicle shop and buys a $12, maybe? I think it's $12. This giant popsicle meant for elephants because they're big and need bigger food and whatnot. Like, that is a snack for elephants because they are so large. But a bunny, a rabbit, for example, would not buy an elephant popsicle as a snack. That's too much for them. And it's also, why would they waste the money on a $12 popsicle for elephants when they can spend $2 on a bunny-sized one, right? And so my thing is, like, when larger animals such as the elephants, the giraffes, animals like that in Zootopia, when they are job searching, when they're on Indeed looking for jobs in Zootopia, do you think that they have an easy or a hard time getting employed? Because elephants, if their food is larger, that means their food is more money. So I can only assume that their cars are more money, their apartments, their houses are more money, their furniture is more money because it's bigger, you know? It takes more to make those things big for them. So do you think that the larger animals, such as elephants and giraffes, have a hard time being employed because employers know they need to pay them more? Or do you think that elephants and giraffes and larger animals have an easy time finding work because they can do the jobs that the smaller animals can't? Because larger animals, such as the elephants and giraffes, like the giraffes, they could be probably good construction workers. They can reach really high to do things, right? And the elephants are big and strong. They can, do those heavy labor jobs where they are hauling things. Those are things that the smaller animals can't really do with that much ease, right? So my thing is, like, do you think that there is a demand for the larger animals and the work that they can do or not? Because I feel like some normal office job in Zootopia, right? Because what I'm thinking is, like, some normal office cubicle job in Zootopia, they probably wouldn't hire an elephant because I'm assuming that the pay rate for an elephant would realistically have to be higher than the pay rate for a rabbit or, like, a lamb or something. It's kind of like that whole thing where, like, women are paid, like, 70 cents to every dollar a man makes. It's kind of like that in Zootopia, is what I'm assuming, is that, like, elephants, because they're an elephant, they are required to be paid more because of the things that they need, right? So I feel like it's safe to say that a normal cubicle office job in Zootopia would probably not hire an elephant or a giraffe because they don't have the accommodations and they don't want to pay them more when they can just hire a rabbit or a lamb to do the same job, right? So, like, is there a demand for the work that the larger animals can do in Zootopia? Or are all those spots filled up because there's an abundance of larger animals so that some elephants, because all the construction jobs and the heavy labor jobs are already taken up, they're having to go into these other pools to find jobs, and they're having trouble getting employment because these companies don't want to pay an elephant for this same job that they can pay less to a rabbit to do, right? I really want to know what inflation and what the job market looks like in Zootopia. And also, more so, I want to know what animal I would be if I was thrown into the Zootopia multiverse. I'd like to say, elephants are my favorite animal, but I don't think I'd be an elephant. I think that I would be, like, a panther. Like a white panther. I think that if I was thrown into the Zootopia multiverse, I would be maybe a white tiger. That would be pretty, like a snow tiger or a snow leopard. I think it might be a snow leopard. Also with Zootopia, have you guys ever noticed that there are no birds in Zootopia? There's no birds. Watch the movie again. No birds in Zootopia, which then brings me to another point of Zootopia, which is this. Do you think that there are cities in Zootopia, or like cities in their world, that are built based off of the animals around them? So like Zootopia is all mammals. So do you think that Zootopia is kind of like people kind of move from their other cities to go to Zootopia because it's so diverse, right? Zootopia is very diverse. Zootopia feeds into the mammals. They build things with the intention that mammals will live there, right? And more so, in Zootopia, they have different districts in Zootopia. If you recall, there is a jungle district in Zootopia, which leads me to believe that they build these towns and cities and neighborhoods based off of the majority of what species live in that area. They have a jungle district, probably because a lot of jungle animals live in that area. So then it leads me to believe, because there are no birds in Zootopia, do you think that birds aren't moving and migrating to Zootopia because Zootopia doesn't cater to their needs? I'm thinking that the reason that we don't see any birds in Zootopia is because the city of Zootopia was built based off of the impression that mammals would be there. And birds aren't in Zootopia because Zootopia doesn't cater to their species. So do you think that there's other cities in the Zootopia universe that are like built for different species? Like, do you think that there's a city that was built like maybe in Brazil, for example, like in Rio, how it's a big jungle full of birds. So do you think that in Zootopia they have a city kind of like in Rio, where they build a city in the Brazilian forest based off the fact that, hey, the majority of the animals here are birds. Let's build a city that caters to these birds. Let's monopolize off of these birds and make a city for them, right? So I'm willing to assume that because there's a Zootopia that kind of caters to the mammals, there's probably a city somewhere that caters to birds. So maybe that it's safe to say that there is probably a city out there somewhere that was built with the impression that birds would live there. And so mammals don't migrate to that city because it doesn't cater to the mammal needs. The mammals can't fly up to their houses the way the birds can. That's the same reason that the birds aren't migrating to Zootopia, is because Zootopia doesn't cater to their species. So then I'm thinking, and then it reminds me of Monsters University. In Monsters University, there's this awesome scene where they have a school underwater for the aquatic monsters, right? So then it makes me think, there has surely got to be a city underwater for the aquatic animals in their universe, right? And then it goes back to the same thing I was talking about with Zootopia. The whales are gonna need bigger houses than the tiny fish. So do you think that whales have a hard time finding employment in the Zootopia universe, right? Also, do we think that Atlantis was built into a city underwater for the aquatic animals in Zootopia? Does Atlantis exist in the Zootopia multiverse? I don't know. But yeah, it just makes me think. And also, you know how in Zootopia they have the tiny city for the rats? Is it safe to say they have a tiny city for the insects too? Like spiders and ants and ladybugs? So it just makes me think, Zootopia is one city in their universe, right? There's got to be more cities out there. There's got to be a bird city. There has to be a fish city. You know? It kind of reminds me of Elemental. You know how in Elemental, their city has those districts based off if you're like an earth, wind, fire, or water monster or element? I feel like Zootopia would have that same thing going on. Kind of like they had in Elemental. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what other cities you think that they have in the Zootopia multiverse, because I would really like to know. Also, let me know what animal you think you'd be in the Zootopia multiverse, and let me know if a snow leopard is accurate for what I would be. But yeah.